Right beside old Unit 3 sits a shell-marked waste, you see. Tanks of resin stacked with care, holding what the pumps caught there. TEPCO filed 2 plans to show. One says yes, the other no. Each awaits a coming call. Neither clears the path at all. Less than a gram, that's what they've got from Unit 2, and that was a lot. Fuel remains in buried rooms while they measure water plumes. Early 30s, so they say, when the work might get underway. Decommissioned down the line, mid-century's hopeful sign. 880 tons remain, none retrieved from 3's domain. They debate what space to claim, still the building stays the same. A careful shot, not from 3, not from 4. Still they work around the door. Less than a gram, still asking for
Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Beautiful. That is an amazing song. Link is in the chat room right now, and you can find it in my playlist, or go to James Lucett's YouTube channel. And you see it in my playlist in anti-nuclear music. That'll take you to the channel if you can't remember. Here we go. For rock and roll. Bring it up on that screen a bit better. Not the same without my big head there somewhere, right? There it is. So data centers track, trace, database, and sell government, Congress, Senate, politicians, datas instead of just citizens. So they got you on your heels. And so you just got to start building data centers that are doing the same thing to them. And you'll find out very quick that they don't like data centers. America's gone absolutely nuts. I think they got more than the world combined built there already. It's around 5,200. There's around 182 countries that got at least one data center. 115 of them are UN signatory countries. So, give me a thumbs up on my video if... That's not an if right there, hang on. It's the other window. Eric Schmidt, do you know Eric Schmidt? He was a CEO. He grew up. His parents were academics, professors at major shakers and movers institutions like, I believe, don't quote me, I'm not going to say either one, but they're made like MIT or something like that. And he grew up programming computers with cards as a child. Because his parents worked at the universities, he was allowed to play around. This is how he ended up becoming so astute. He also had the biggest collection of Bob Barker dolls when he was young. I should tell you something. Currently, he just became a licensed arm dealer because of the Ukraine war with his drones. So he makes he's making, he's want to use AI drones. So of course you can just take the AI and put it in the drones in your community or anybody else's community. Somebody can hack it, and now they can program drones to attack people with 1 million kills already under his belt. He's got about 1 million kills under his belt already. It's extraordinary, really. He's heartless. And so if you agree, now I'm not saying do this. I'm not saying we should do this. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, like, I know last year, I think it was last year, late last year, he was at, I think it was the World Economic Forum. He was walking around the streets, and I said to myself, you know, if I was there, I would have I would get a cheap drone, and I would get some styrofoam, and I would paint it to make it look like a BOMB. And when he's walking down the street, I would chase him and see what he would do. Now, I'm not saying we should do that. I'm just saying, if you would like to see a video of him on the other end of a drone, give me a thumbs up on the video, because I sure would. Here we go. Eric Schmidt, if you can't use your real name, don't use Google. But Google's supposed to be just a search engine, right? And so they had corporate personhood. They put all their monies in offshore accounts. They didn't pay any state, federal, local taxes. Didn't contribute to the economy, but they sucked the life out of it. But that whole history, let's get on to this right now. Japan proposes rebuilding nuclear reactors to meet rising power demand for data centers. Data centers. To keep up with surging electricity demand for AI data centers. And there's a lot of stories like that for data centers. Do you want? We're going to get the small modular reactor right around the corner. They're right around the corner. Yeah, your price is going to go up for a little while, but then we're going to have small modular reactors, and your price will come back down. Don't worry about it. We're data centers. We supersede everybody and everything in your countries. Are better than you. In fact, we are you. We're going to steal everything about you and your children and your house, and we're going to sell it over to anybody that wants it. So we really need data centers that are going to track these people, every facet of their lives, and what they're doing with your data. We need data centers doing that. So we can, because they're so slick, that's what we need to keep up with the crimes they're going to be committing against us. And because a lot of these are corporate personhood, they can't go to jail. They can just get a fine, and they'll pay the fine with money they put in offshore accounts because they didn't pay any state, federal, or local taxes through an illegal amendment to the slavery laws. The slavery laws were manipulated for corporate personhood to give corporations certain human rights, which is unconstitutional, right? The laws were changed in increments by constitutional lawyers, and there was no debates, no Senate investigation, there was no media's reporting on it. And so United States American Supreme Court Justice Hugo Blackett wrote an eloquent dissent about it in 1930-something, I think it is. Don't quote me. He was a Supreme Court justice. And he said it was absurd that a law meant to free blacks from an oppressive government was now going to be used by corporations to oppress a sovereign people, which is the people of the country, right? But that was one of the most truest statements we've ever heard in history. So Japan want to build data centers, but they need nuclear. Nothing else can work. Not geothermal, nothing else. Nothing can work. It's got to be nuclear. And so the whole nuclear renaissance currently we have out there, which is not a nuclear renaissance at all, it's just a bunch of hype from 1,000 public relation firms that are paid handsomely every year to promote nuclear. And so you have 1,000, plus there's more than 1,000, because some of these are AP, some of these are Associated Press, right? AP and Associated Press each have around 1,500, 1,800 medias that will spider bot everything to put on their site, and then it immediately distribute to around another 1,800 medias. It's a very powerful weapon. You get the same author with the same paragraphs, and you have no dissenting voices. There's no yin for the yang. World's largest nuclear station proposed for Lake Ontario shoreline. Lake Ontario is one of the three Great Lakes, which combined is the third biggest aquifer of fresh water on your entire planet. And that is severely poisoned just with the tritium-3H that the Canadian CANDU reactors can't contain. You're going to be poisoning everybody. The people working at the nuclear plant, the pro-nuclear community and the universities, everybody else are poisoning their own children, their friends and their families and their pets and every species on the planet and the future generations, because it's not just tritium-3H that is going into Lake Ontario. And at one point, you know, they had raised the legal limit because so much was going into Lake Ontario that you were allowed to drink 4,400 becquerels of tritium-3H per liter. These are impossible numbers to have for people to end up healthy anytime later. Or they're going to cause incredible health, heart problem, liver problem, lung problem, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, Down syndrome. You know, sickness from radioactive fallout is a catastrophic. Now, the data centers they're talking about want to use halo fuel is the name they're using. It's the best way to describe it. And halo fuel is very high assay, high grade, almost a military grade nuclear fuel. This is we have a name for it. We call it plutonium mixed oxide fuel, MOX fuel. And it's dirty as it gets. It's the dirtiest thing imaginable. And you cannot contain the emissions. Like, say you could lock everything down, which you can't. All the rainwater that lands on the site is tritiated. And these are catastrophic things. Now, like after an accident, I think in Switzerland, they allowed 8 becquerels, which is 8 atoms, say, of tritium-3H in the drinking water per liter. Canada had it at 44,000 because they couldn't contain it. They still can't contain it. They can never contain it. The whole design is the stupidest design imaginable on top of that. World's largest nuclear station proposed for Lake Ontario. And they have an enormous amount of influence, right? They control the universities, the medias, key positions throughout the government. They're producing the shakers and movers for industry across the country. So they control the universities since the Manhattan Project, right? And that, under a Secrecy Act, that has never gone away. That's what we call university schools of mass destruction, because if you knew what they were really up to, you wouldn't send your kid there, I can tell you that much. Nuclear startup Helion hits with $15.5 billion valuation, latest funding round for fusion. They don't have fusion. They just throw money at it. Like if you took that money and threw it at geothermal, everything would be geothermal by next year, worldwide. That'd be the end of this ridiculous nuclear fantasies, or so-called renaissance, and the batteries and all this other stupid shit. Geothermal is 24/7. You can put it anywhere. The technology's matured, and the only thing that's holding it back is the nuclear industry and the energy industry is scuttling everything to do with geothermal. They don't want it in their neighborhood because they're obsolete. Like imagine making a car engine that gets 1,000 miles on a gallon. Pretty cool, right? Well, that's what geothermal is to energy compared to all the other resources that are out there. And we have technology now that we couldn't even imagine 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, that can currently, right, just off the shelf. You don't need any special training or anything. You can buy this drilling equipment right off the shelf. You can hire master plumbers to plumb everything together. Any community can be self-sufficient within 2 or 3 years. Everything's paid for, and then you can drop the price down to 1/10, 1/100 of the rest of the country, because you're not going to spend $100 million a year on a nuclear plant maintenance. Instead, you're going to spend $10,000 a year for grease and spare parts. And they throw money at these desperate. This is absolute desperation. And the government has also given them incredible they don't have to pay taxes on the land. They don't have to pay. Everything's a write-off. They can get it back after. The financing paid by the taxpayers, of course. Financing underscores surging demand for electricity to power massive data centers. So they're gone nuts. They're gone nuts. And we just started. We're going to start building these mass data centers a few years ago, and they're already sucking your country's energy dry and driving up, causing inflation to homes that are already stretched because of the staged Ukraine-Russian war, which was designed to cause inflation worldwide and cripple economies worldwide. And then you have the Hormuz straight down, they're shut down still. And they're doing every trick under the book to keep prices each week to a certain number, right? It's orchestrated, clearly orchestrated. And it's just hurting everybody except for the extreme wealthy and the crazies like Eric Schmidt. This guy is crazy. He's actually crazy. If you watch some of the videos that he's been about him lately, like at the university with awards, everybody booed him. They understand he's nothing but a monster. He's a real-life monster. And he never needed to go that way. He was always a monster, see? The only reason you do the things he's doing is because you were always a monster. Like, he's not going to get boots on the ground and be out there with the drones chasing everybody down. He's contributing to nothing but misery. I'm going to give you an example of that. I'm going to play a Ukraine army out looking for people to send out in the field so the Russian drones can chase them down and kill them, for instance. So there's two sides to the story. I'm going to give you both of them. It gives you better context, I hope. And I forgot to do it earlier, so here we go. This is recruiters just snatching people off the street so they can be killed by drones tomorrow or the next day. This is what Eric Schmidt is participating in, this madness. And then the algorithms will be used just to enslave humanity in the most horrific way. They're going around looking for people to jack off the street. There's like so many videos of this, it's ridiculous. Probably not the best video, but hang on. Smurfed up. Okay, let me play a drone chased somebody around. This is going to be Ukraine drones, Eric Schmidt's drones. And think about the fact that the people that are flying those drones are going to be people's neighbors. And these are maniacs. You can't rehabilitate the people that are driving those drones. They're jacking people, and then they got like kids with Down syndrome they're taking off the street to conscript into the army. Let me play that one right quick. No, that's not the one. It don't matter, I suppose, but the problem is I got 283 drones. Let me try one more time. And 283 of these drone videos chasing people around. I give you the worst one. It's just unbelievable, man. And then it's like, so Eric Smith is contributing to that war. Couldn't exist without Eric Smith doing what he's doing. The war would be over and millions of people would be dead. I don't know what that was all about. Try that one more time. Here we go. Just pull you right out of your car, put a gun to your head, pull you out, and send you out on a field and have a drone chase you down and kill you. And so Eric Smith knows that people are cracking up and becoming unstable, so he wants the AI to do everything. So there can never be, who's going to question what the AI done? Who's going to hold that robot, a drone, accountable? So shouldn't Eric Smith be held accountable for what he's doing? Like, we've never seen anything like this, and this kind of precedence. You know, where we're going to end up now after, say, the Ukraine war and Russia war ends. Where's that technology? Just what? Do you think that's going to disappear? They need another war right away to continue refining their technology. That's what they're doing. They can't shut down the Ukraine war. They haven't perfected the technology of chasing each other. They're grabbing people off the streets. At the numbers I'm seeing are just, and they're grabbing people who know nothing about the military. Don't want anything to do with the military. It's not a way forward for humanity. Humanity can't look back on this moment with any kind of pride or, right? We're setting a precedence that's a trap for a future generation of this planet. The financing, you know, people are making money off it, so they're willing to attack me over it. The financing underscores surging demand for electricity to power massive data centers. So fusion, right? You got to get 150 million degrees Celsius, 270 million degrees Fahrenheit on planet Earth. The reason it works in the sun is because the sun could eject whatever, 1 million miles out into space, or 10 million miles, or 100 million miles into space. Planet Earth, we have to contain it. We can't contain it. And every startup, like geothermal, is right there. We don't need, right? We don't need to put all of our hopes and dreams on a fusion or a small modular reactor. Like we can probably develop that eventually down the road. That might be acceptable, not insane, which is highly unlikely, of course, because the industries are already sentenced our planet to death. Oaklow speculative nuclear plans clash with solid earnings for southern companies in data center power race. Right, so the big push, even though the data centers are still being built, they don't have their small modular reactors. They have over 5,200 in America, 300 here in little stupid Canada, and going strong. You know, we got what's his faces want to build a $50 million data center. That's 50 square miles, rather. $75 million or something. What does he need? The only thing he can do is take all of our datas and then use that, weaponize it, and do predictive programming with it, program the robots to fill your fantasies. Why are they doing stuff like this? Why are they so obsessed with every facet of your life, of every single human's life? Why are they so fascinated with that? They're making money from it, clearly, and a lot of it, clearly. But what was the catalyst for that to show up out of nowhere? If you look at Klaus Schwab's speeches over the years before he retired and the current administration that is working that corporate personhood operation, data center power races. Despite a large pipeline of non-binding data center agreements, data center flocks to France's abundant nuclear electricity. Data centers flock And what's happening is the communities are being sucked dry of electricity and water. And the emissions from these sites are just shocking. French AI data center, these are noise pollution, air pollution, ground pollution, water resource intensive, and they'll just pay whatever price they got to pay. They don't care how much it costs. They don't care if they got to bring in generators and drown out your whole community with generators, as long as they got their data center. And we don't have any kind of regulatory or nothing. These are just all doing whatever they feel like doing with data. Nothing makes any sense because we're not privy to the ultimate. Well, clearly this is about track tracing, databasing, and controlling all facets. That's not a society. They're doing it most likely, and the desperation we're seeing it's being done in desperation is because 2 years all the whales will be gone because the food chain is broken post-Fukushima, right? And eventually, this story can't be suppressed forever. I don't think they can suppress it much longer. I think the world is well aware. And since Fukushima, they've done every dirty trick to promote nuclear. The world turned away from nuclear, and the nuclear industry doubled down. And they have enormous amounts of resources and infrastructure to come after any dissenting voices and to promote whatever bird brain idea the chicken eggs have next. This is what we're seeing anyway. And these are chicken eggs, bird brains. Right? And they go to university, get multiple degrees, but they don't go get a job. They're dysfunctional. They're functional like autism. And so they're sucked up by the nuclear industry, and there's all kinds of things the nuclear industry can weaponize them against humanity for. That's what the nuclear industry is, a weapon against humanity. It poisons all your air, all your water, all your food, all your plants, all your trees. Every species on the planet has been poisoned many times over. Every plant, every insect, there's nothing that hasn't been poisoned and isn't poisoned currently after 80 years of emissions and a pulse event from Fukushima. French AI data centers industry appears to be coming to fruition. 70% of France's fresh water is going to nuclear, for goodness sakes. And because the glaciers are melting post-Fukushima and France's rivers that they got a lot of these nuclear plants on were dependent upon that cold water coming down to regulate the temperatures, which regulates the temperatures of the coastline ultimately, but now it doesn't even do that. It doesn't regulate the temperatures of these massive rivers. The rivers are drying up because they're not being fed. So nuclear down there has gone stupid. Some of these data centers are located on the French state-owned nuclear joints, EDF's industrial sites, but data centers right on the nuclear plant site. Nothing evil going on there whatsoever. IAEA developed nuclear solutions for shipping. The International Degenerate Agency, United Nations. The United Nations is developing nuclear solutions for shipping. Let's put a Chernobyl everywhere. Good to go. Nothing happens to ships. Ships never. Like you still can't decommission all your nuclear submarines worldwide. What are you going to do with ships? Forget about nuclear reactors. Google may have found a sneaky way to get all the electricity it needs for its data centers by buying a little bit of power from thousands of U.S. households. These are chicken eggs that do stuff like this, isn't it? Every new data center Google builds consumes electricity on the scale of a small city. Well, Google's too big to... Google has to consume everything in order to exist. Wherever it's to, it has to consume everything. It has to own everything to exist. It doesn't pay any state, federal, local taxes. Everything goes in offshore accounts. If they get a fine, that's fine. They don't care. They just pay from the taxes that they never paid or contributed to your countries. You can't hold them accountable. You can't put them in jail because it's corporate personhood. You can't put the shareholders in jail. Mark Zuckerberg can't go to jail. Eric Schmidt can't go to jail. He's corporate personhood. So a drone should be chasing him every time he gets out of his car. Will the AI war be upended? Because that's what you're supposed to do with people like that. Everybody should have a drone when he knows he's coming in their community. Everybody go and buy a drone, chase that fucker around. I'm not saying do it, but I'm saying ultimately, if you don't do something like that, these people would never learn. Will the AI war be upended? The next generation of cash cows chosen by Musk revealed. Next generation. And that's another thing, right? The technology they're using in data center is obsolete the next day. So they always got to upgrade everything and create a lot of pollution just doing that routine. Well, SpaceX scheduled for its IPO on the 12th. The company revealed its listing to deploy 1 million space data centers. 1 million space data centers. They've lost their minds, right? What about technology comes up that replaces all that next year? And they're using a stupid amount of precious resources and metals, too, to make these data centers. It's absurd of the precious metals that they're consuming. We don't have an infinite amount of that on this planet. And they're just, they have no accountability, right? They're corporate personhood. Most of this, the big contributors to the misery of our planet. Space data centers. According to SpaceX, one of the company's core businesses is going to be space data centers. Good God. Space data centers. 1 million of them. Just from the one company. Do you think other companies are going to sit idly by and let him get the whole shit and shaboodle? No, there's going to be all kinds of countries and companies that are going to want to compete with that. Well, like I knew I was going to get extra censored tonight. I'm not surprised with that. Particularly with when you start talking about how people like Eric Schmidt, not Eric Schmidt in particular, but people like him should have what the crimes they're committing against humanity back in their faces, and we live in a time where we could. If you went to New York, we could have 10,000 people buy drones and chase him everywhere he goes with foam. You can make foam BOMBs and paint them up, right, so they look like the real thing. He'll shit himself silly. If I was extremely wealthy, we'd live stream it too. And everybody can watch that video next day. I bet you the day after, he ain't going to be the same Eric Schmidt anymore. He's not going to be willing to kill 1 million people a year with his product. What an evil, stupid, moronic, chicken neck dummy. When he has everything you could ever want, he didn't need to go that route. He went that route because he was always that personality. He just couldn't show that personality so much at Google. And he got the job at Google because of that person, that ruthless, that disconnected personality that he's disconnected from any kind of reality. Now he wants AI drones chasing down the conscripted victims of the wars that he prolonged. Don't worry though, I'm the bad fucking guy, right? Don't forget that. I'm the bad guy because I'm having a conversation. So I'm a terrible fucking person. I got 9 viewers on a show I've been doing for 15 years, contributing to society, unlike Eric Schmidt. 13 likes, 11 votes. These are very hard-won numbers. Struggling to survive, keep the operation afloat. Eric Schmidt got everything thrown at him. Just got to be evil, right? And the eviler you are, the more money, it's billions. He's got like 70-something billion dollars already. He doesn't need to keep being evil. So if 1 million space data centers are deployed, it would eliminate the need to build 100 nuclear power plants on Earth. I think 1 million space data centers is actually worse than 100 nuclear power plants on Earth. And the ultimate damage it does to the future of the species and humanity. They're gone nuts. right? The flock cameras are everywhere, feeding into the wherever data centers now. Flock cameras got to be. Rising demand, data centers push Kentucky towards nuclear power. Data centers push Kentucky towards nuclear power. Notice how and you won't, well, you might, but there's a scattered time you hear the word geothermal, but there'll be gas, oil, and coal, and maybe geothermal, right? Geothermal is the solution, but it should never go towards data centers. We don't need data centers. It'd be great if they weren't so fucking evil. It's a collaboration with X Energy to study whether small modular reactors. I'd be ashamed to say the word, if I was in this industry, to even utter the word small modular reactors. There is no small modular reactors. I done a whole presentation on that a few weeks ago. I'll show you the 3 small modular reactors we currently have on the planet. You tell me. Boop. This is China's small modular reactor. It's a skyscraper. It's going to go up a lot higher than that. Once they get that on, the cover for the reactor, they have the world's biggest crane to lift a small modular reactor's cover. Okay. The barge, you see there, the academic, the Russian academic, is a 15-story building. Who knows how deep underground it is? And they have fuel pools on it. I'm sorry, fuel rooms. That's what they call it. You can't put fuel rods in a room. You got to put it in a pool. It's always going to be in a room, obviously, but it has to be underwater. And that water has to be evaporated directly into that community where it's tied up to. They're insane, right? And the Canadian small modular reactor X300 is a 24-story building. They just dug the holes in the ground are 115 feet deep. 10-story building underground. And they're lunatics. The only reason they're building this is because they don't have small modular reactors. They don't have something that fits on the back of a truck. You need 10,000 trucks to haul one of their small modular reactors, basically. It's a total fable, right? They wouldn't build a Canadian small modular reactor. They're building, there's a Poland, I believe, don't quote me, but one of those countries are going to build 24 of these massive small modular reactors. Right? The premises was they were right around the corner, so data centers would be okay in a year or two. That didn't come to fruition because they wouldn't be building these massive reactors if they had a small modular reactor. Does that make sense? Does anything make sense? Saline data center brings out bigwigs, big day for Michigan, or big betrayal. $56 billion data center. $56 billion. It'll be the noisiest thing they've ever heard on the planet. 450 jobs, which is like irrelevant. The barn will be completed at the end of 2027. There's nothing to it. All the precious metals they can get their hands on, there's nothing holding them back. Can turn into a site where cancer gets cured, Altman said. Do you get any idea which is Sam over in the corner over there sat down? These people are lunatics, by the way. You're not, like, you're killing everybody at the hospitals with radiation and chemo. And chemo radiation therapy, whatever you want to call it. Because you do chemo and radiation. They even do that with pills. You got special containers you got to keep them in before you stick them in your body and radiate the shit out of yourself and everybody around you. We still don't think the world has appreciated how much AI every person, every business is going to want. Why would we want it? Let's hear it. Spill the beans, man. All this time, they still haven't told us why we need it. Well, you got to make cat videos, Dana, clearly. Oh. I don't use AI. I use it a little tiny bit at best in a day. Like 3 or 4 minutes or something. You should just make like a little wiglet or a little, like a handheld device. And you buy it for $60 and it's full of AI, right? and you can ask your questions or whatever. Instead of just torturing the whole country and poisoning the whole country with data centers, which are basically now under a new executive order from Trump. I haven't verified it, but it's basically a military installations now. In order you can't get rid of them. And there's a lot of people a lot of communities trying to get rid of them because they're ridiculous. India data center build out to hit 8 gigawatts by 2030. 8 gigawatts, enough to power 8 million homes and businesses. What's the benefit again? India data center build out to hit 8 gigawatts. India, there's 1 million children die every year there from dysentery and diarrhea that can be fixed with just 15 cents of salts. Lawmakers warn children, China, may be fueling U.S. data center backlash. No, 5,200 data centers in a couple of years is fueling the backlash, shit for brains. But see, a lot of people will read that headline, won't read the story, don't know anything about the context. This was June the 6th. Like today's list of data centers stories is crazy. I'll give you the examples that are coming up in a little bit, but it was crazy. Like, holy shit. It was absurd how much news was there. Voters in California City banned AI data center constructions. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were trying to put the brakes on and no one knows what the hell is going on. You gotta have it, 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 you gotta have it. You can't do it without it. You better get it because you gotta have it. It's data centers. Only data centers know why it's important, but you gotta have it. I'll give you an example here.
You have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you're going to have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection, but you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce. You have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you're going to have all that protection.
Wait now, let me turn the volume way up. I forgot we turned it down for the Ukraine stuff.
You have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you're going to have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection, but you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce taxes, and you're going to have something that if you don't have it, everybody else wants it. So,
really? Who?
These are the smartest people. Most of you in this room, we have a couple probably on the other side of things. They disagree, but I don't know how they can disagree. Your community and your state's going to become rich, and there's very little disruption. And again,
you're going to have to spend all the money on electricity.
Somebody else is going to take it. You might as well do it yourself. So,
if your town don't take it, the next one will, and they're going to get all the benefits. You got to have it. You got to give them all your water, all your fresh air, you let them make as much noise all night long as they need, because they need. You got to have it. There it is. You don't get it, you're going to be sorry. You're probably sorry now you don't have it. See? That's what kind of double talk is that? And again, I'm sorry. So voters in California City banned AI data centers for the plans for Utah. Data centers shrinking over backlash. Seattle issues a 1-year prohibition on center constructions. There's a lot of pushback going on over the last couple of months, I'm noticing. The measures declare prohibition on data centers citywide in order to protect the air quality, drinking water resources, the public's health. And so people can actually sit out in their gardens instead of being chased out of the city because of the noise. Prevents impact to electricity and water rates. Yeah, well, the first thing people are noticing is when the data centers come into the community, they offer a few jobs, but everybody's electricity rates go crazy. And when the funding's running, then realize that their electricity prices are never going to come back down. They're just going to keep going up because they can't compete with the data centers' deep pockets. It comes in response to a proposed data center project, Monterey Park, which was ultimately withdrawn earlier this year after the city council adopted a moratorium on data center construction. They're insane too. And they got all kinds of ways to get around this. Data centers, like they got all kinds of tricks they're using. Data center moratorium restrictions have gained traction across the country as state and local levels, in the face of rising communities, push back to the sprawling servers, warehouses that are central to AI boom. Are central to an AI, what AI boom? Where you don't need people and everything is done by AI everywhere that can be done. Robots can do the rest. And they'll connect it to the data centers, and 1 million space data centers will make sure a drone can chase you down and kill you anywhere on the planet. And first, California and Eric Schmidt would never be happier. In the first, California city overwhelmingly votes to permanently ban data centers. Yeah, because they got privy to the reality. In the wake of backlash to a data center being built in Utah, businessman Kevin O'Leary, the retard, has agreed to cut the project area in half from around 40,000 acres to around 20,000 acres. 40,000 acres in Canada. The other 20 would remain under development and set aside as the agricultural space or for wildlife. In other words, no prying eyes. Amazon engineer in Seattle slammed employer for building AI data centers while laying off 30,000 staffers. So one data center replaced 30,000 people. Gotta have them. Lawmakers warn China may be feeling U.S. data center backlash as local bans spread. Lawmakers warn. Lawmakers, the people that are supposed to protect you from the data centers, are silencing you by playing that game there. Trump not worried over China funding anti-data center movements in the United States. Does anybody, like they got 5,200 data centers. They don't need China to fund anything. There's 5,200 of these things showed up and made everybody's lives miserable. Trump asked if China's behind the anti-data center movement. Or Bill Gates or whoever the president is next, right? I'm sure Bill Gates is running for president somewhere. Not worried about whether China's funding an anti-data center movement here in the United States. No, because he knows the difference. Meeting held to boost nuclear medicine capacity. They got all kinds of flowers. They all got their own pretty looking microphones. And I'm sure they got nice cheers. They all feel really special now. Yeah, all we got to do is convince the people in the hospital that there's no cure. There's no natural way to cure you, and the only way you can do it is we got to inject nuclear waste into you because we can't put it all in repositories. We don't have one, so the cancer victims will be the nuclear repositories and your smoke detectors and anything else they can manipulate you into giving up. FEPC expands support for completion of the Rochefort reprocessing plant. There's some story, eh? The Federation of Electric Power Companies. Japan's different, boy. So they're talking about a plutonium mixed oxide facility in Japan. I think they've been building it about 28 years. They're still no closer to getting it finished, but they said they're going to finish it. In the response for cooperation from the government, the FEPC has newly assigned approximately 30 additional personnel to the project. Combined with more than 90 personnel already dispatched, the total numbers of secondees now stand at approximately 120. They assigned 30 additional people to the project, to the reprocessing site, so up to 120 new employees, is that what they're saying? Speaking at a press conference, the Nuclear Regulation Authority, the non-regulatory agency, you should call them, reviews meetings on the plant's design, construction plan, approval, progressing smoothly, and that explanations to the regulators are expected to be completed after one more review meeting. Well, you can have all of these regulatory meetings you want, but you got to build it, you got to finish the site first, stupid. You're 28 years down the road. He emphasized the completion, full-scale operation of the reprocessed nuclear fuel reprocessing site are essential, which is a massive emissions. It's horrific because they boil to fuel rods in 3,000 degree Fahrenheit temperature of nitrous acid, and then they reclaim the uranium and plutonium, to advancing Japan's nuclear fuel cycle policy. Japan is built on tectonic plates. It's the last spot you want to put one of these facilities. Like the nuclear industry has no checks and balances, nothing. The IAEA there is to coordinate the no checks and balances. They're UN. They're like, say, UN has all kinds of nuclear players, right, that are masquerading as some kind of regulatory agency. These are not regulatory agencies. They don't have any authority over any country. They're structured the same as McDonald's. In 2022, FEPC established Nuclear Fuel Cycle Promotion Task Force to identify challenges, develop solutions to the completion of the reprocessing site. They're still no closer. Shannon Youngblood takes office as president. This was a story I didn't get around to doing. Has been elected president of the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging Technologists section. The new slate of officers was introduced in 2026 annual meeting. Her job is to promote nuclear genocide to the cancer victims that are unsuspecting and believe these people. Right? It looks like a very presentable person. Give Timmy these chemo shots and these radiation pills and these radiation injections. They'll be okay. How much insurance they got to get? Will champion 3 action-driven priorities, amplifying the visibility influences, the visibility, right? To get it into the victims' minds that radiation is an option, right? Like, radiation therapy is not an option. It doesn't work. So go look up studies in radiation therapy, side effects, injuries, or something like that from radiation therapy. And you can never get through it. If you had it every day for the rest of the year, you can't get through the studies. Every one of the studies is a failure. Coordinated advocacy about the local, national level. So that's a pretty, like, the visibility. And we see this over and over. Incredibly talented, educated, articulated, good pedigree, very wealthy upbringings. They have every opportunity, and they choose these jobs, where they bring nothing but misery and agony to the victims that are going to be. Everybody that takes radiation is a victim. Private nuclear can solve data center energy crunch. No, it can't. How? Private nuclear? What are you talking about? Right? There's so many people out there that'll just jump on this bandwagon. They'll get it, and they'll make a lot of money just playing the game. Then came artificial intelligence. Residential electricity prices have jumped 27% since 2019. And they're expecting to climb another 40% by 2030. So residential electricity prices climbed 27% since 2019. Right, and they're suggesting data center. In Florida, the state's largest utility pursued rate increases for years to fund infrastructure and meet rapid growth. Now with data centers, AI demands adding fresh pressure on top of years of increases. Someone has to pay for it. It has to be you. Can't be them. They're not going to build their own because that's some of their profits. So they want you to build it, and your prices to go up and pay for it, and then they make all the profits, and then you're the commodity, your data. What if a massive energy user could simply generate their own electricity? A startup is developing thorium micro-reactors the size of shipping containers. Like, if that was really going to come to fruition, it wouldn't be building the small modular reactor, boiling water reactor X300 in Canada and other places in states and everywhere else worldwide. Right? These are fantasy. Like, this is not the first, and this won't be the last thorium fantasy reactor. They built their Lake appliances targeting mass production, 300 units per year, using 3D printing, which drives down the cost with every unit. Right, this is right? The economic of scale narratives. That's how they worm their way in, and they create, instead of like, no matter what the application is, instead of thinking of, can we do it with geothermal first? Right, that should always be front and center. Can we do it with geothermal? Because geothermal, for these applications, you can have it up and running in just a couple of months. Right, but they're putting all their eggs, with a lawnmower hitting right at it. It doesn't make sense to promote fusion and small modular reactors and fission, and when you don't have that technology, you don't even have a working design. You have 100 companies that hasn't been able to produce the design in, say, the last decade. There's another 100 companies for fusion haven't produced anything in the last decade. And they sucked up absurd amount of millions every year each, billions each year, and they haven't brought any kind of hopes whatsoever to the table anywhere. So why would you be adamant that that's the solution when it doesn't exist? Why would you do that? If someone came up to them and say, hey, you want to buy my house, I'm going to give it to you at this price. But it's not built yet. We don't have any land. We don't have a budget or any money. But when we get your money, then we're going to get some land and we're going to build a house. And it could be 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, though, before we finish it. Right? Because we work for the nuclear industry, and that's how things work. It's like a schizophrenia talking to a schizophrenia across a hallway. In other words, once these technologies reach volume productions, there is no technologies. There is no volume production. You're not building factories. You don't have a chain there, to supply chain built or created or agreed upon or functional or anything else. Kiro's Power broke the ground on the Hermes 2 reactor, Oak Ridge, which is a national laboratory. They've had so many melted reactors at these national laboratories, you can barely wrap your mind around it. They'll never come to fruition. Just because you're building a demonstration one at the national laboratories, that's just part and parcel of it. If you're going to design a car, you'd have to build a car and try to go through, to get it to work just to start your technology. That's what we're talking about there. The micro reactors, like if it was going to come to fruition, they wouldn't be building these massive skyscrapers and calling them small modular reactors, because they can say, well, that's in the pipeline. Just wait next year, the year after, and we'll have one of those. Does that make sense? Drawn by Tennessee's skilled nuclear workforce and state funds that has already burst tens of millions of dollars towards advanced nuclear development. If you took all this money and threw it 5 years ago, say, at geothermal, how do we make geothermal drill bits and equipment and get it out to every community so they can have their own geothermal? They can buy it off us and recoup the money we made for the production and the infrastructures. We would all live in the dream right now. And then data centers, of course, they have no good intentions. In the first half of 2025, utilities requested $29 billion in rate hikes, double the prior year, affecting over 400 million customers nationwide. And unfortunately, some states still carry nuclear restrictions written in the 70s, long before anyone could even imagine the energy demand that AI would bring. Well, nuclear is a dirty technology. It contaminates everything within 100 miles. You can't contain it from the fuel pool. The fuel pools have no containment. They're still splitting atoms for millions of homes and businesses up those tall, skinny stacks. These are biological weapons. A single atom is considered 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison from the anthropogenic man-made atoms. Why would you want that released into your ecosystem? How are you so thick-headed? Why are you so stupid? Yet, here we are, and some states are responding by targeting the wrong thing entirely. New York lawmakers are mulling a 3-year moratorium on permits for high energy. All data centers are high energy. Every one of them. If you're going to describe a data center, the first thing you should describe it as rate increases for you and your friends and your families and your community immediately because it's high energy data centers. Essentially telling residents that data centers are the problem. Yeah, they are. Good on them. The state welcoming private nuclear innovations are already building the answer and why answers and when supply grows, cost comes down. No, it doesn't. Name one time in history that worked that way. The ones still clinging to the outdated restrictions of no nuclears in their communities and their cities will be left explaining to the residents why they're paying more for less. Well, they're paying more for less because you showed up with your data center and caused the energy to go up. And why the solution was right there all along, which is geothermal, it was never nuclear. And this idiot, moron, is the founder of IAEA Communication Solutions, a contributor with Young Voices. In other words, right, a inbreed who found her niche. Distributed by the Invading Sea website. The Invading Sea website. Dirtbags, eh? These are dirtbags that create names like that. Nuclear weapons could soon be hosted in more NATO nations. What it means for the defense stocks. Defense stocks. Well, America didn't have to come defend themselves a single time that I know of in my lifetime. Right, they go somewhere else and blow up that country. And then Halliburton and the rest of them shows up and rebuilds it, and just it's robbing the federal governments. And GMO, of course, is there. I mean, who won the war in Iraq and Afghanistan? It was GMO. Because the people of Afghanistan and Iraq weren't allowed to grow their hereditary seeds, which family traditions have passed down for thousands of years. I think it was at least 20 years or something like that, with a discrepancy to extend the... Why would you do that? Why do you have to only grow GMO seeds for that next 20, 30 years? Once you do that, you can never get to GMO, right? And then they can check your fields. If you got GMO there, they can sue you and steal your land and your... The discussion which could involve NATO, that's what they've done. The GMO have done that lots, even in Canada. NATO members on European eastern flanks, which could involve NATO members. NATO was created in response to the Soviet Union, right? Because the Soviet Union was better at everything. And so NATO shows up. NATO's, it's non-elected. It's not a country. It's unaccountable. It has nuclear weapons, chemical, biological weapons. It has fighter jets and aircraft carriers. It has nuclear weapons. It has massive military and a budget every year. It's just given billions of dollars from multiple countries every year, from 30 countries or 31 countries. If you look up NATO, it's 31 militaries. That's what it'll say. Right, so you look up NATO, type in NATO, and the search engine, you get those, how you get that search on the side of your window when they're a well-known establishment? It'll say 30 militaries. And so they can't prosper without wars. So when the Soviet Union was disbanded and everybody lost their pensions and patents, idiots, Gorbachev, then NATO should have been dissolved too. Now NATO is an entity that is incredibly powerful. It's unbelievably powerful. In fact, that's who's funding and supplying, and that's who Eric Schmidt is working directly with. The war, what's the word for it? There's a word for it. They're committing war against Russia, NATO is, and they're going through a proxy, which is Ukraine. And even though very public, but still, that's how it's playing out. So legally, as if, according to the United Nations, which controls your whole planet, by the way, now has captured your planet and your fresh water. The move could boost demand for dual-capable aircraft such as the F-35, benefiting companies including, these are all military monsters. Right? The 10 biggest, I remember when the 10 biggest weapons producer on the planet, or 7 out of the 10 biggest weapons producer on the planet, set up shop in Australia. And I was like, yeah, that's the end of Australia's freedom. And they have to consume everything to exist. NATO stands ready to defend every inch of the Allies' territory, Ruttl, Mark Ruddle, said in his post on X. Calling Russia's behavior reckless and a danger to us all. Really? You're not reckless. You're not a danger. Like, who gave you the authority to do this? Nobody did. You have 30 militaries that are completely out of control with no accountability and no checks and balances. Iranian economists, Iran must show the U.S. and Israel it has nuclear capability. We can turn 460 kilogram of highly enriched uranium to 130 bomb missiles. If attacked, we will retaliate against Washington. Into 130 bomb missiles. Israel won't even hesitate to use nuclear weapons. That'd be right up their alley, man. In fact, there's a lot of Israelis call for using nuclear weapons on Gaza and Palestine, and now Iran. I've got a collection of that stuff, unfortunately. World's first nuclear dustbin. Think about the arrogance to even type in that first sentence. World's first nuclear dustbin is almost ready and will be sealed for 1 million years. If it melts down, it'll crack the earth all the way to the surface. And it will melt down, right? You're putting high-level fuel down there, eventually that's going to melt down. The world's first nuclear dustbin. Like, these are people that don't have any right to be in the public that would write a sentence like that. That wouldn't give nuclear the prominence it deserves because of the dangers that it contains. The underground vault will store radioactive fuel for thousands of centuries. Well, you can't prove that. There's no precedence to say that's going to work that way. Everything's a hyperbole, where the nuclear dustbin, look, they even wrote it again. Deep beneath a Finnish forest. It was lowered 433 meters into a hole, drilled into the tunnel floors, packed with bentonite clay, which is stupid to suggest that's going to stop. If you have a nuclear meltdown, it's going to burn at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And if you get contact with any kind of water whatsoever, which eventually you will, then the explosion from the expansion of the water will crack that earth 1,200, 1,400 feet like a joke. It'll split it wide open, baby. And the emissions coming out of there will contaminate the planet eventually. And it could take 10 years altogether after it starts to completely contaminate too. Certainly within 30 days, the whole planet will be contaminated. That stuff gets out of the burns and is coming out of the ground. And you can't stop that from happening eventually, which is a natural mineral that swells when wet to form a seal. So using bentonite clay to swell to form a seal, as if that's going to stop something, because you know it can come out, so they're putting in these connotations suggesting that it can't, because they're going to have bentonite clay, is absurd, because the heat will turn that into dust. The facility has the capacity for 6,500 tons of uranium. So let me do the poundage on that. They're not talking about, it's not just going to be uranium, it's going to be plutonium, it's used fuel. Right, so just calling it uranium is very deceptive. Are they metric? I can't remember. Let's go to just standard imperial. It's 13 million pounds. Any idea what kind of a bang that stuff would make if it goes off? The hot cell fuel handling chamber at the encapsulation plant. Everything is vented when you're doing that, upstairs and out into the environment. Everything's packaged upstairs, repackaged. I wrote him an email. Good job. I'd like to donate $1 million Canadian to your organization so you can continue to exterminate your own people like you do so well. And in the first year after Fukushima meltdown, your country had an increase of 865,000 cancers. Children's thyroid tumors went from 1 in a million to 356,000 in a million. Without monsters like you, your country would be healthy. Now they're dying of miserable deaths. You're the devil's best friend and the enemy of humanity. I didn't clip what I showed after, but that irked me, let's put it that way. How nuclear science enhances seafood safety in Nambia. Well, let me guess, IAEA. Nuclear science doesn't enhance food safety. Like, radiating your food is not food safety. You're creating a couple of unique problems. You're getting rid of the nutritional value of the food by radiating it. You're killing all the good stuff, and you're radiating it. And so there's health consequences from that. That might not manifest for a decade or years or a certain amount of time, but it certainly will. It certainly can show up within a short period of time, not necessarily a long period of time. It's keeping seafood safe from ocean to the table. So they create these international standards that can be only met if they radiate the food, so to speak, right? That's how they do this. And you're forced to, if you want to export and have a GPD economy. In this video, we explore how nuclear isotopic techniques are transforming food safety with support from the most evilest humans imaginable, the United Nations. These are savages. Excuse me. And look at this, they got old E&E News by Politico. It's Politico, right? But they have a section called E&E News. They bought that for like $3,600. Dirtbags, but. First reactor reaches criticality under Department of Energy nuclear pilot program. And they're pro-nuclear, see? Whereas E&E was anti-nuclear. First reactor reaches criticality under Department of Energy nuclear pilot program. I still haven't seen any evidence of this. I mean, Enrico Fermi created a criticality under bleachers at Chicago University or something, right? Criticality could be a nuclear accident, see? It doesn't mean it was something good. Robots look inside of Fukushima reactors for the first time today. Robots do. Fukushima. Reactors, Dana. Wait a second, the reactors don't even exist. They all melted down, blew up, and caught fire, and blew up, and caught fire. Not necessarily in that order. And data centers is very taboo. It's unpatriotic to talk about nuclear. As the crazies all say, who fucking knows? Hang on. IAEA, Rafael Grossi. Here's one thing we know about him. And he does in his spare time. He sniffs bicycle seats. So, how can you send robots into the reactors when they were 150 feet above the stumps? How does that work? Anybody know how that works? I don't know. Robot gets to look inside of Fukushima reactors for the first time. There is no reactors. You blew the fucking buildings up. Moron. Japan aims to replace 14 aging nuclear reactors by 2050. Under the plan, the ministry hopes to replace up to 5 nuclear reactors by 2040. Nuclear fuel removal begins in Fukushima Daiichi number 2. I covered that last night extensively, so that's not true. They're lunatics, eh? The whole industry is mented, sick and twisted, demented. The whole nuclear industry is full of nothing but the most gobblish humans imaginable. But there's a lot of them are compartmentalized. A lot of them are on the autism functional spectrum. The incredible degrees in education, but they're dysfunctional. Right? They look normal, they grew up very privileged, but they're incredibly dysfunctional. And they're what they call yes men and yes women. Whatever their boss says, they're like, yes, sir. And they'll work like a dog so they get pat on the head when they're finished. Very sensitive issue. Supreme Court warns of Fukushima-like nuclear disaster, questioning liability caps. Decided the Fukushima disaster, arguing the damage from a major nuclear incident in India can run into the hundreds of times of that amount. Yeah, there's no liability, right? The Price Anderson is prevalent worldwide now. So these are the cooling towers for just the boiling water. But those tall red and white stacks, they're pumping fuel from the fuel pools. They're pumping emissions 24 hours a day. At least 120 to 250,000 liters of water. Each liter is trillions of anthropogenic man-made isotopes. Each isotope will eventually give someone an autoimmune disease or illness or cancers or whatever the case may be. You will get sick from this stuff. Your body doesn't have an autoimmune trigger to defend against it, and neither does any of the species. 39 police officers disciplined in Japan for failing to patrol areas hit by Fukushima nuclear accident. Remember that story? I'm not sure why I got that there again, but it popped up again, I guess. The Fukushima Prefectural Police on Friday disciplined 39 police officers for not going into the difficult to return zone. Normal people call it a nuclear wasteland. And they're supposed to keep people from stealing equipment and selling it on eBay and everywhere else to people like me and you. Like, no, I got two kids, they're both lopsided heads and disfigured. I'm not going in there, no, boss. Entry to these areas is still heavily restricted due to high levels of radiation in the difficult to return, but eventually return zone. So calling it a difficult to return zone means you plan to put them back there. That's the reason they framed it that way. But Japan is despicable. It's despicable. And the way it treats women and young girls is despicable. It's unconscionable what that country is actually like. Look at what they've done in Nanking to the women in China. Those people are still in power. A lot of those people are in positions of authority in that country and institutions. Special task force comprised of members dispatched. But I mean, what they do to the girls on the buses down there is just sickening. Every child down there is a victim of the males of the... Japan is a failed society. The special task force is comprised of members dispatched to the Fukushima Prefectural Police across the country to help with reconstruction efforts. Reconstructing in a nuclear wasteland. Like, they're mentally ill. They have no functional reality whatsoever. It was difficult to feel that our work was actually contributing to the area's safety and security, so one of the disciplined officers. I'm sure he said a lot worse than that. You just didn't print it, you sack of shit. Very sensitive issue. Supreme Court warns of Fukushima-like nuclear disaster. Back to that story. I screwed up today. I don't know. Supreme Court of Tuesday described the capping of liability for the nuclear accidents as a very sensitive legislative political issue. Well, there's no checks and balances, right? There's no accountability. They can't legislate something because then it affects every nuclear plant and nuclear accident. Then they're vulnerable if you do that, see? And they've never done that. Farmers from Fukushima work to promote Kumamoto, his new home, is a native of a nuclear wasteland, also known as Awataki, in the Fukushima Prefecture. Seeing his hometown, nuclear wasteland, he's determined to contribute to the regional revitalization through farming, through poisoning people. So the revitalized community has to poison millions of people with farming, with rice and everything else. Right? And the Japan Times is notorious for running these types of stories, which is the major media in Japan. He began thinking aloud he should contribute to revitalize an area. He opened a farm in September 2016 and currently grows nearly 50 types of vegetables. Every one of them will give you a cancer or a heart problem or a liver problem or a lung problem or a respiratory or pituitary or thyroid or adrenaline or... Yeah, no, I blocked out the face because it was a young person and Google doesn't let you post pictures of young people. So I just try to get back in some of the censorship it's going to do to me. They're going to do it to me anyway. I've been censored since I got on this site. He sells them in nearby restaurants, so you can't even go to a restaurant in Japan. Don't go to 7-Elevens because they're saturated with freaking radioactive food from the nuclear wasteland. You got to realize how bad this really was, the radioactive fallout. It was hideous. And they even sell it online because evil has no limits. He's sad to see it devastated. Well, how about nuclear wasteland? Why are you growing food in nuclear wasteland? You should be arrested and put in jail. That's why those cops were disciplined, because you should have arrested people like that and put them in jail. They're serial killers, right? They're growing food in nuclear wasteland and shipping it everywhere to all kinds of people. These are idiots. These are idiots to do that. And for them not to know any better means the country is full of idiots. Japan's Fukushima power plant decommissioning produced record low levels of contaminated water. Record low levels. You contaminate the whole country, man. You parasites. They really are parasites, eh? I'll show you the scumbag UN in 2011, I think it was. And they wanted to downplay the radiation in the communities. And this is really something. Just one of these buildings melting down is reactors is a catastrophic event for every species on the planet, let alone ground zero Japan. But each of these buildings had at least 9 reactor cores 150 feet up in the air. They're gone. So just these 2 reactors is around 18 reactor cores. Each of them were equal to about 100 Chernobyls. That emission, they picked up 30 million to 60 million one-ton bags. They had picked up 30 by 2015. I was showing that last night. So this is United Nations downplaying the radiation in the communities. They're only looking at cesium-137, which is brutal, by the way. And a single atom is enough to ultimately inflict some kind of illness or disease or autoimmune deficiency or injury or illness. And to your left, far left, is the name of the communities. The next one is the population in 2010, which didn't change in 2011. And then the second set of numbers right here, like 229,756 atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of soil, square meter of soil, surface, just a square meter. These are hideous numbers. Fukushima City, by the way, every house there was entitled to be decommissioned by the government, but it never had enough homeless people. You can't, by the way, decommission a house or decontaminate a house or a city. So these are communities they didn't want to pay for relocation. So they told them it was safe. United Nations did. So the communities to your left, all of those victims are the number, like Iwaki City is 354,000 people, 26,000 atoms, just cesium-137. The biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod is curium isotopes, not cesium, by the way. Excuse me. I had a long day, rough day today. It seems like every day I got a rough day. The weather's gone nasty down here. It was like 14 degrees here today. Seems like 12 tomorrow. It's like bizarre, man. Okay, wait, hang on. Bear with me here, actually. Right, and I almost forgot what I'm supposed to be doing here. That's okay. I'm pretty stupid, so I remembered. Here we go. This is really important, actually. Curium isotopes are the major byproduct in the radioactive nuclear fuel. I remember seeing the comments out there, the pro-nuclear community trying to convince people not to watch me, saying that I stuttered, right? That I stutter and over words and stuff like that. You got to realize how much information I got to process in a few seconds in order to tell you the best answer, to make it more easier for even a brand new person to comprehend. I always have to readjust because I'm dealing with lies, right? So forget the fact of the alphas emitted radionuclides. Curium isotopes are the major byproduct in the radiated fuel, which means not cesium-137 in that community, it's much more curium isotopes, okay. So I gotta go backwards. This is Loveless Respiratory Research Institute This is the United States Navy Research Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So 144 beagle dogs were given inhalation of it. They were allowed to live out their lives. There's three types of tumors. Tumors, lung, skeleton, and liver. Most of the animals died from skeleton tumors. All of them died within 5.5 years. Bone tumors in 93 dogs were the most common cause of death, which is a terrible way to die. Lung tumors in 46 dogs were the next second most common cause of death from a single isotope, plutonium. 3 different tumors. Okay. And the last second sentence from the bottom, the findings in dogs suggest a similar dose-related biological effects are expected in humans. Well, humans' kidneys are 50 times less efficient than an animal kidney, not 50%, but 50 times. So you're 50 times more likely to die from the same exposure than the dogs did. And all the dogs died. And all their studies were on dogs and monkeys. They all died. Okay. Curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium does. And curium isotopes are the biggest byproduct in the radioactive fuel rod. So why are we talking about cesium when the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod would have been curium isotopes? And because they're nuclear meltdown, it's an absurd amount more of curium isotopes, is the better way to put it. There's the population, that first line of numbers. This line is the isotopes per square meter. Not for your city, but for a square meter where your children are standing up waiting for the bus, for instance. These are unconscionable numbers. See all these cities? See the people in the cities, your first row of numbers. Now see the amount of isotopes per square meter of just cesium-137, as if cesium-137 travels by itself. And uranium goes that way, and curium goes this way, and americium goes that way, neptunium goes this way. No, they all travel in the same plume. And the biggest byproduct of radioactive fuel rod is not cesium, which is brutal. Cesium pulses energy 600 feet every second. It's brutal. It wrecks your chromosomes, your cells, your DNA of every species. It's brutal. Did I mention it was brutal? So you look at all these cities. These are populated cities in a nuclear wasteland. And they're growing food and shipping it worldwide, particularly to your countries. Japan's prefecture, Fukushima Prefecture in particular, is the biggest producer of rice, over 1 billion pounds a year. They never stopped growing rice. They checked it for cesium, not curium. And they didn't really check it for anything, because curium will drown out the single of cesium. Because you need lead shielding 20 times thicker, right? Get it? Do you get it? Do you understand it yet? You can't measure cesium isotopes because of the curium. It's a much stronger single. It's 20 times stronger. And cesium is brutal. So all of these communities are brutal nuclear wastelands, but people are moving back to the ghost towns, which are worse than these places, and farming there because they're complacent, and then they're put on a pedestal by the media so they feel justified. And then the United Nations says there was no external, they never studied any external plume, any internal plume, rather. Only the external, there was no external. This is absurdness. When you look at the numbers, it's absurd to suggest anything. They're suggesting that it was harmless or innocuous or benign. An average of 60 tons per day of treated water. You can't treat water. Was produced during the decommissioning of the Fukushima nuclear one reactor power plant. 60 tons a day. Your garden hose produce 3/4-inch garden hose will produce around 120, 140 tons a day, depending on the water pressure, which is typically around 30 pounds per square inch. And so, a garden hose, half a garden hose is the water they're producing a day. And this is treated. I mean, telling a lie, but then telling that lie is absurd. The nuclear industry, there's not a redeeming quality in the entire nuclear industry. They look like normal people. They have tons of money, influence. They have good pedigrees, so to speak. They have good teeth. They have good health. They live like a kings. They're making an enormous amount of money. And that justifies them, right? Somehow in their mind, that justifies them that poisoning everybody is okay because they got a good fucking job. And they come from their so-called good family, which got their money by poisoning everybody. Their parents worked for the industry that poisoned everybody. Their grandparents worked for it. So they feel entitled. That's the way it is. We're better than everybody, and we're supposed to. You poison everybody, including yourselves and all your friends and families and loved ones. But they're so compartmentalized, they're justified because they live in this fantasy like, oh, I work for the nuclear industry wherever they go. I work for the nuclear industry. You make a lot of money, yeah. Nice car, see that? I've seen them. I talked to them. I know exactly what they're like. They're morons. They have the IQ of a fruit fly, but they're really good at memorizing a book. And that's why the nuclear industry hires them, because they're useful serial killers. The record low level indicates TEPCO has reached the goal of reducing the amount of generated water 50, 70 tons per day, 3 years ahead of schedule. It's absurd. Like half a garden hose a day. First off, if you filter the emissions coming from, if you really was reclaiming the water that you're spraying in on the melted reactor sites, the exploded reactor sites, so they're spraying water perpetually in there, and they're claiming they're pumping that up and filtering it. It doesn't work that way. Multiple sieverts per liter. You can never change the filter after the first half an hour. You can't get back in that room after the first half an hour. After 2 hours, you're talking about thousands of sieverts in the filter. It's like a sniper round because the gamma shines, the neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the alpha shines, etc., etc. It'll melt your organs. You can't change those filters. And you can't walk over the pipes that are bringing the water from the tanks, say, to the alleged filtration system. You can't even walk over that without getting a lethal dose. If it doesn't kill you on the spot, it'll kill you that night or the next day. Because that's how the science works. And you can't, like, they haven't stopped putting water there on the reactor. These sites are built on shale, so that if they have this event, the water runs down through the shale, hits the water table, which is always typically an old riverbed, and washes it out into the rivers or the seas or the estuaries, wherever it's located. That's their old shit plan. And it happens anyway. There's continual emissions on these sites from the fuel pools. Once you put fuel in the fuel pool, now you have a biological weapon site that is hemorrhaging radiation 24 hours a day into the environment because the fuel from the fuel pool has no containment. And it's boiling off 120,000 liters. Each liter is just hundreds of trillions of anthropogenic man-made atoms that are catastrophic to everything with replicating cells being released directly into the environment. What fucking part about this is so difficult to appreciate it is wrong? What part of that? Is it that people can't fucking wrap their minds around and understand that this is a catastrophic assault upon every species? We don't have anything on the planet with an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. If it's in the species, of any species, humans included, bodies, atoms in your body, it pulses energy in an explosion almost at the speed of light every second. It's wrecking your chromosomes, your cells, your DNA. Your body tries to repair it every second, every fucking second, with white blood cells. It can't keep up with it, and it tries to build a sarcophagus around the source. But it has to repair the damage every second to all these cells and chromosomes and DNA, genomes and whatever, permanent lesions to your organs. Your body's under siege constantly with white blood cells for the rest of your life, till you die from it. So it's a direct impact on your health. And because you're bioaccumulating it from many different sources now because of a pulse event in Japan in 2011 contaminated the entire food fucking chain. Because you've been releasing it from 1,000 fuel pools worldwide, it was bound to happen anyway, but now we have an accelerant, which is known as Fukushima, like a pulse event of around 36 massive plutonium uranium reactor cores that are each equal to at least 100 plus Chernobyls. At least a 4,000 Chernobyl event took place. Chernobyl was so bad they closed 9,000 farms in Ireland, Scotland, and the United Kingdom. And it's just a fucking paper towel compared to Fukushima, but it was brutal. It meant you contaminated all of Europe. You couldn't get to fucking Ireland, Scotland, and the United Kingdom without contaminating Europe too. Let's keep going. And the peak was in 2015, he said 490 tons per day. What the fuck are you talking about? The reactors needed 4,500 tons a fucking minute. before they ran away. They did a lot more once they ran away. Right? And so lie about every facet. There's not a fucking facet. Oh, we're going down that rabbit hole now, I'm sorry. I'll switch up. Treat it. You can't treat fucking water from a chain reaction or from nuclear. You can't fucking filter nuclear out. This is not a water filter for your fucking house. This is nuclear. If you accumulate gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas in your fucking filter, it melts down. You can't fucking filter it, and you can't separate it. On the scales we're talking about, it's even more absurd to even suggest for half a fucking second you could. There's no science there to support their assertions. Nothing. I get a little cranky sometimes. I watch an extinction event all day, every day playing out, and everybody's like... Less than a gram. Only less than a gram got it. Remember that song I started off with? Less than a gram. How bad could it be? It was less than a gram, didn't it? Well, we got all the whales worldwide showing up emaciated. You better get your fucking acts together on this planet. If you think that this is not a fucking thing, if you think that had no repercussions, you're fucking stupid. And gullible or naive or a little bit of all. These are emaciated whales in the last year. These are shows, presentations that I've done on emaciated whales, trying to have a fucking conversation, which have been censored right off the planet. These whales are so skinny, they don't even look like whales anymore. I've never seen anything like this pre-Fukushima. Fukushima broke the food chain. Doesn't this fucking concern you? You really think that it's just whales? When you see the biggest creatures on the planet showing up in death stage starvation / emaciation, and that doesn't fucking motivate you or move you, you're missing a few fucking important chromosomes, my friend. Like this whale here looks pretty bad, but it's only like 4, 5, 6 days, and the heat will do that to the skin, right? These are all clearly severely emaciated animals. This is the reason I'm putting them. These are thumbnails for presentations that I've done in my live shows. Go back to my live shows and you'll see these presentations. And you'll see dozens and dozens of hours of documentation. I do my fucking homework too. And I provide you with an absolutely overwhelming amount of documentation so you can make up your own fucking mind, which will be the correct. If you watch my stuff, you'll come to the correct conclusion because I'm going to give you the information. You can research everything yourself and you end up back with the reality that the food chain is fucking broken. What else could it be? Whales? Why is every whale worldwide showing up emaciated? And why ain't this world fighting back? This is fucking madness, buddy. Like just one picture like this is fucking madness. But whales all over the world showing up severely emaciated, undeniably. Every fucking whale of every species we're seeing is severely emaciated. And how does people move on for this? After seeing this, how do they go back to their fucking everyday life is beyond me? Zombie. You gotta be a fucking zombie not to be worried about this. You're supposed to be worried about this. This is the most important issue in human history, period, bar nothing. These whales will be gone by next year, all of them. The data centers will make you feel fucking better. You can make AI videos of whales and everything will be fucking balance itself out, right? All these whales I'm showing you are different species, severely emaciated all over the world. Wherever they show up, it's an emaciated whale. It's a given. They just had 300 whales, almost 300 humpback whales off Africa. And they said, oh, well, they're feeding out there. And they showed just one picture from a drone. And when you zoomed in, out of the 5 whales there, 4 of them you can see pretty good. They're severely emaciated, for fuck's sakes. All of them sperm whales up there are emaciated. We're seeing every species post-Fukushima showing up severely emaciated. Look at that whale up in the corner. That's a gray whale, recent gray whale in April. The emaciation levels we're seeing, we've never seen a single emaciated whale until Fukushima. Now every species and every whale is showing up in death stage starvation. I mean, when you look at that whale up there, and these are all humpback or gray whales, recent gray whales. These are in the last 3 or 4 weeks, these two in the bottom. And that one up there is about 2 months ago. That is, how can you deny this? How can you pretend this is not, how can you pretend this doesn't deserve to be heard? How can you censor the fuck out of me? Right? How can you censor the living fuck out of me? 15 people on my show. How can you fucking do that? I'm not the fucking bad person. You pricks that are censoring me. I'm not a fucking bad person for doing this, you pricks. Fuck off. Leave me alone. Your loved ones will fucking thank you down the road because you wouldn't do nothing good for them. You left them in the dark, you fucking idiot. You cowards. I go to fucking war every day for everybody on this fucking planet. I do. I'm gone to war. Information war, educate the population, hopefully, because if we don't have a conversation, we're fucked. We're fucked anyway. The whales are fucked. It's time to have that conversation. I'm not a bad fucking person for doing this. And that's how they make themselves feel good. They claim I'm a bad person for showing the evidence. Therefore, I'm a bad fucking person. Shocking what they got done to me. I don't even exist. The problem is they didn't count on the fact that these presentations are ultimately going to undo them, right? Small modular reactors and data centers are more important than the species on your planet. You lost touch with reality. To the people, I don't have detractors. I have scumbags that are very funded in positions where they can fuck me over, and that's how they get paid for. They get paid to fuck me over. They'll do it for free. Just so they can say to the industry, we censored the fuck out of that guy Durnford for you. Okay, I'll get you a good job here, a good pension. Should data centers track, trace, and sell governments, Congress, Senate, politicians' data instead of just citizens? We need data centers to do that. We need data centers to see what the data centers are doing with our data. We need data centers to track who these people really are and what they're doing so we can inform the population to be aware that these predators are in your communities. We need data centers to track, trace, and database what Eric Schmidt is fucking doing to everybody and planning on what his software will ultimately end up doing to humanity and enslaving humanity. Because apparently $74 billion in his bank account is not enough fucking money. He needs everything. He needs to destroy Earth, and only he can be prosperous, right? That's the world we live in. These people are fucking insane. They've never been held accountable, and the people that are capable of exposing him are disappeared from the lexicon. Excuse me. Okay, that's it for Dana Boy. Let me see what we got going on here. I was going to play a little frog in my throat. I think, like yesterday morning and this morning wasn't too bad. When I woke up, I didn't almost fucking die. This is a great song on re-education. It's called Did I Sell Secrets to Pakistan? It's about 6,000 Indians that were prosecuted and charged with sedition for protesting a nuclear power plant. They couldn't get a job, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't leave the country, they were stuck in their communities, they couldn't feed their families, and they would go to court and it would cost them all kinds of energy and monetary they didn't have. They usually lived day by day, right? And that went on for years and years and years and years and years. And so the only way they can get their freedom back is if they became pro-nuclear. so to speak, right? And this song makes incredible mockery of that whole process, but it's very eloquent, it's very deceptive, but it's actually it's a beautiful song. You got to give it a chance. You have a great night. Hugs for everybody. See everybody on the next one. Don't take any wooden data centers. It's a great song. Just give it a chance. Tells a great story, an amazing story. Here we go.
I stood by the shore and I said what I thought about Kudankulam near our homes. I spoke of fish and children at night. They said I was speaking against the state. I was not asking for anything grand. I only asked what came from that plant. They called it sedition for saying those things. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I say too much? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why call my worry sedition? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I step out of place? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why answer me with handcuffs? They spoke of progress, they spoke of pride. They spoke as if nuclear was care. I spoke of water, boats and nets. They answered like I should not be there. Now I am wiser, now I am calmer. Now I repeat what they told me is true. If someone gets sick, it must be something else. Nuclear saves lives, or so they say. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I say too much? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why call my worry sedition? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? Or did I step out of place? If nuclear is so clean and safe, why charge me and put me in handcuffs? Now I get it, now I understand. Nuclear is clean. Now I get it, now I understand. It was only me. Now I get it, now I understand. I was making trouble then. Nuclear is kind and clean. That's what I say now here. Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? I only spoke of our shores. If nuclear is so clean and safe, why am I quieter now? Did I sell secrets to Pakistan? I only asked what it means. Now when they speak of a future built on nuclear, I say that nuclear is clean.